So it's important to have that context to wrap the answers that I've already given today in. As you wake up, things that scared you won't scare you anymore. And those around you, for whom those things are still scary, will think you've gone bananas. Fine. The process of awakening does mean that you will not fit in to the old infrastructures. Get used to that. But realize also that the greater clarity that you're experiencing is one that will be able to find expression in ways that will not cause war, but will suffuse the status quo, no matter how slowly, and uplift it and transform it. You cannot experience an expanded perspective and to try to keep it boxed in to the old perspective. And so in many ways you will be seen as an explorer, an adventurer, those people who everyone loves but doesn't want to be. Okay, hands. The gentleman in the blue sweater. Oh, could you pass this back? If you'll hold your hand up. Yep.
Hello. Right now, I feel as though my life is in a state of disarray. I feel torn in many directions, and
Could you hold it closer to your mouth?
I feel torn in many directions, and I go inside myself frequently to try to get clarity. Questions, life questions about career, about where I live, about my relationship. And when I go to get clarity, I find that I get many different answers. I feel like I'm on a Ferris wheel. And depending what time of the day it is, I come up with a different answer that feels good and feels right, and then changes. And all of the choices that I see seem to exclude other choices that I might want. And I'm going around in circles and confused and feel torn about it. And I'm wondering if you have any guidance for how to get past that.
No. You don't want to get past it. You want to enjoy it. You want to be present with it. It is as though you are going to go to Disney World, and so you have been given a brochure, and there are pages after pages of pictures of the different rides and the different booths and so on, and all for your delight and contemplation. So that when you finally get there, you may go to the one you want to first. I want you to continue to listen, and I want you to continue to let the answers be different each time you listen. And I want you to abide with each one as it's given. Feel it. Be present with it. Absorb it. And all the time that you're doing that, I want you to be asking a question that you're listening for the answer to as well. And that question is, what do I love? Meaning, what's my gift? What do I have to bring to the world, the situation, your life? Right now, it is as though you're being allowed to scan all the potentials. The mistake is that you are feeling as though you've got to make a decision about each one of them as they're provided. And I'm saying, don't assume that. Let the variety be provided and abide with it. Feel into it fully. A decision is not called for today or tomorrow or a month from now. There's no rush. I don't care who says, by this time you ought to know what you're going to do in your life. As though you're only going to do one thing in your life. Nowadays, most everyone has a minimum of 3 careers in a lifetime. Not because they planned it, but because that's how quick the movement is. And no one still does what their father did and their grandfather did and their great-grandfather did. So don't buy into that. It's okay what's happening. You don't want to get beyond it. The time will come when your connection with what you love and the guidance, the information that's being provided to you will congeal together with your life experience up to that point. And it will be clear what to do. And it will feel like you. It will feel good. There's just no pressure here for you to come to a conclusion. That's the end of the answer. You are welcome. We're going to stop for just a moment. Okay, hands. In the green here.
Hi.
Hi.
I wanted to talk with you today about pregnancy and the experience of birth. And before I ask you some questions about me specifically, I wanted to share something with everybody. In October, I had a dream that there was an individual. It was a dream sort of about getting pregnant, but it was a dream where there was an individual who took part in a process where there was a decision made to pair up with me and my partner. And I think it was in the same dream that I had an experience of actually giving birth to a baby, and I've never had a dream like that before, and it felt like more than just something that was going through my head. And so that was last October. And then in January, I found out that I was actually pregnant. And shortly after that, I started, when I closed my eyes, seeing an individual in front of me with 4 or 5 individuals behind that person or behind that being. And I felt like maybe that was this being who was taking part in this decision. And it didn't feel like I was making it up, but it was also something it was a completely new experience for me. And I felt like that individual was going through a process of preparation. And I felt like it wasn't going to go away, and so I sort of let that be, and I haven't been tuning back into that image, but I feel like that was a significant part of what's going on. And so my question is, or my questions are, what's going on? What is going on? Who is this person?
I will tell you very simply, it's the same thing that goes on every single time any of you become pregnant. You don't always know this is happening, but you are open enough, undefended enough to experience what is happening. But such decisions occur because there's absolute order to everything that happens, and the decision is made, the preparation occurs, and so on. You have been undefended enough to simply be conscious of it.
So
I do want to let you know that although you experienced that it was a very definite decision, and I don't mean a decision as not an intellectual decision.
right.
It's a decision that has its roots in God. That could make it seem as though this particular birth may be an extraordinary one, special in some way. And what I am meaning to convey is that it's not in any way special. It's in every way meaningful, and it is exactly the same way every time conception and pregnancy occurs.
One of the things I'm wondering is, why is it necessary to actually become physically pregnant when it felt like last October is sort of, when it all started. So I don't quite understand that.
Because you're not quite open enough to let it appear any other way.
Okay.
You're not quite that awake yet.
So what happens with, now I want to be specific about...
I'm going to say one more thing. One way or another, the appearance of a new individual would occur. So what difference does it make what the look of the appearance is?
Okay, right. With this individual, or with anyone really, what happens when there's a point where you're awake, or you know what's going on, and then what is the experience that individual is having that I'm experiencing when they're here and when they're born? Or is there a point while they're in here do they start to forget, or when they're born do they forget, or is it as they grow up do they forget, and what can I do, or is there anything I need to do to prepare an environment where that's not necessary? They don't have to forget what they know. That's my question.
How much they forget will have nothing to do with you. It will have to do with them. What can you do? You can, for the whole time they are with you, remind them that they are holy. I don't mean that in a religious sense. Support their vision. Don't let them forget that their presence, their very being is meaningful, with a capital M. Not just personally meaningful to you, but essential to the infinite expression of God, essential to everyone in this world essential to the whole of the brotherhood, essential to creation. Do everything you can not to let them forget that they fit, even if they're different. But most of all, just love them. That's the end of the answer.
Thank you.
You are welcome. Hands. The gentleman right behind you.
Aloha, Raj.
Good afternoon.
I have a minor question and a major question. At least in my mind, there's a difference. Okay, the first question is, should I proceed with the purchase of the house that I have under contract?
Should you what?
Proceed with the purchase of the house that I have under contract. Should I relocate and actually move into that residence? And if so, what changes will that make in right livelihood and support?
Yes, yes, and not a great deal. The form, the manifestation of your activity that, quote, generates income will be looser. I'm not as confined as it currently is. This is me, Paul. It has the feeling of free-ranging. Most of all, it will give you a break that you are in need of to reconnect with what matters. Not that you have lost it, but that you deserve to be better connected with it than you are. All I can say is just don't think tiny once you embark on this path. That's the end of the answer.
Thank you. The second thing, and this is not an original question, and probably very few are, but it's been interesting. Living in a big city, you see a lot of homeless people. And recently in the Southern California area, we've been getting a lot of rain. And there's two specific experiences that I had that stopped me pretty much in my tracks. I mean, I was in my car, but I just went, whoa. One was a young man, obviously homeless, with a couple of plastic shopping bags. And it was raining pretty heavy, and it was kind of windy and raw. And he was trying to step up on a curb, like only 6 inches tall, and couldn't seem to gather the strength to do that. And I was at a stoplight, and I noticed this because the streets were basically empty. And I felt this feeling come over, like there's something I should be able to do here. In some way, you know, this is the Christ. And what can I do? And I couldn't. It was like, is there someone I could call to give him shelter, or do I take him home? And, you know, or... Then the second experience was again in my car at a stoplight, and a homeless man, an older man, who I see a lot in the neighborhood, who has obviously used some drug to totally shoot his nervous system. So he shakes, uncontrollable tremors. And these tremors apparently had gotten so uncontrollable that he was on the ground, like he was ready to cross the street and then fell. And he was on the ground having some kind of a seizure. And again, the light changed, and I'm sitting in my car going, what should I do about this? And it's not so much that I did or not do anything, but it was the effect, the impact of the effect that struck me. And it's kind of like one of those things where you're left speechless, but in this case I was left kind of like motionless. So I just bring that to the table and say, can you explain, help, whatever?
Just a moment. What makes it sad is that the fundamental element of success in the world today is commerce. That's part of the infrastructure all of you are caught in to one degree or another. When the fundamental element of success in a society is really love, but it isn't profitable. If it were profitable, energy would be put into the resolving of the homeless situation and the resolving of many other inequities that the wrong placement of values has created. You know what? What Paul does isn't profitable. It's not set up to be profitable. To extend love by being in touch with the divine movement of being isn't part of the status quo. It's not part of the current infrastructure. To be very frank with you, each of you will contribute to the transmuting of the status quo by daring to let yourself be changed, by listening deeply within, so that there can be an influx of a clearer experience of your divinity, and therefore the clearer experience of everyone's divinity. Because when the light bulb goes on in your own mind, and you realize how wonderfully loved you are, and you're nobody. I mean, you know you're nobody. You're nobody that deserves that. And when there is a light bulb that goes on that illuminates your divinity in the context, in a universal context, and you know you did nothing special to have that illumination and clarity, then you know for a fact, from the deepest level of your being, that this awareness, this new awareness you're having of yourself, is absolutely true about everyone else, without their having to deserve it, you see. And that context begins to cause you to relate to everyone else differently. The two of you think you've worked in the acceptance and embrace of your relationship. I don't want to scare everyone, but as you let in this revitalizing, inspiring experience of your divinity and your nature as love, part of finding out how things work from this new awareness in the world will involve you addressing real problems rather than problems of economy. And you are likely to have revelations of how the current economical practices can actually be brought to bear upon, in very effective ways, the problem of homelessness, the problem of lack of health support for those who are in need of it, and so on. But you know what? If you begin to embrace your own transformation, you will feel the joy of having it find expression in your world in ways that address the real problems, without arousing fear and antagonism from those who still think economy, a healthy economy, and the generation of income is the bottom line essential. You know what? I've said before that divine love always meets every human need, and it meets you right where you are. It meets your need by entering your conscious awareness in the language of your present perception. In other words, in language that you understand. It doesn't come with ultimate language that would scare you to death. It meets you in language you can understand. Well, if the movement of God in you and through you is love, then your actions in the world will find expression in the language of expression that the world can understand. But when the motivation, the underlying motivation of your actions is love rather than commerce, then the real issues get attended to, and the means of addressing them effectively accompany your effort. But again, it doesn't fit into the old structures, and so you have to be willing to, you might say, listen more deeply than ever to find out how